Shut up and sit down.
Hi, this week joining Kenny and I is Scott Burton. So Scott, do you want to tell us a wee bit about who you are?
Well, I am Scott E Burton. I've had to put in the E recently because there's another Scott Burton now, another Reverend Scott Burton, minister elsewhere in the country. I happen to be minister, I can never get this right. I'm the minister of Cara and Gigha, linked with Kilcamanel, linked with Killane and Kilkenzie. It's a three-way linkage, basically, in West Kintyre and includes the Isle of Gigha as well. So that's what my role is, that's my job, and that's, I guess, one of the reasons why you've invited me onto your podcast to think about churchy stuff. Yeah, so that's who I am, that's where I am, and I look forward to having a wee chat with you.
Excellent. So you've not been there long either?
I've not.
It's a fairly recent move, isn't it?
It is. I moved here, so I was minister in Kelty in West Fife. I was ordained in 1999, just as we went from 1999 over into 2000, and I was there for 7 years, and then I went from Kelty in West Fife to the city centre of Perth, and I was minister of St Matthew's Church in Perth for 12 and a half years, and in August of last year I moved from the city centre of Perth to a very, very much more rural situation here in a three-way linkage. So it's a big change, actually. It's been a big change. But yes, it's new, and it's not exactly what I was anticipating now, but more of that to come, no doubt. Yeah.
Absolutely. So the kind of first question we've asked everyone we've spoken to so far is to take yourself all the way back, which is, kind of almost 7 or 8 weeks ago now, to the Sunday before lockdown. There was a Sunday where we suspected that probably during that next week we would end up, something would happen. We weren't very sure what. So can you remember where you were and what you were thinking in that kind of sort of just before the lockdown kind of period?
Yeah, well, I'm going to take you 1 week before that, if I may, because how it works here is it's three churches, two on the mainland, the peninsula of Kintyre, and one on the Isle of Gigha. And what happens is one Sunday I will be here on the mainland, and I'll take one service up north, I'll take one service down further south, and that's my Sunday over. The following week I would then go to the Isle of Gigha and only take the service on the Isle of Gigha. And so that means 1 week I'm on the mainland, 1 week I'm on the island, and vice versa. There's local worship leaders conduct worship the alternate way around. So 2 weeks previous, or 2 Sundays previous to lockdown, I was here on the mainland. And I think things are a wee bit different here, actually. I hope in no way do I condescend or patronise people in this area. But I sense that people feel a little further removed from the intensity of getting on public transport and being in the middle of a busy high street, for example. And so 2 weeks previously to that, we were actually hugging and shaking hands and saying, is this thing really going to affect us? It's going to be fine, isn't it? It's going to be fine. And we functioned as pretty much as normal, but it was there. It was there. And then things developed, and it began to appear to be that, golly, this is getting really pretty serious, actually. And I then, the following Sunday should have been on the Isle of Gigha. And actually, it's a strange thing. I don't know if anyone else has experienced this, but when you go to the supermarket, you get a bit of a strange sore throat thing going on. I think it's an anxiety thing, actually. But anyway, I found that I had a bit of a sore throat and a tiny bit of a cough. And with all the stuff that was going on, telling us what the symptoms were, knowing that I was going to go onto a remote island, I thought, I just don't feel comfortable about going over. And so I contacted the local folk. The local folk are very, 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 very used to the minister not coming because the ferry might break down or the ferry might not be able to go because of the weather. I contacted local folk and said, look, I've got this bit of a sore throat and I feel a total fraud. I mean, there's nothing wrong with me. On a normal Sunday, I wouldn't have even thought twice about it. So I ended up not going to the church that Sunday. And then, of course, things developed even further where the Church of Scotland sent out the email to say, look, that's it, all churches need to close. And then we found ourselves in that situation where it was a new situation we're facing altogether. So, yeah, that's a kind of preface to church closure.
Yeah. And that, I think, obviously one of the reasons that we wanted to speak to you was that you live in a very different situation to us. Both Kenny and I live in Lanarkshire. Well, Kenny's in kind of South Glasgow now.
Have you know I live in East Renfrewshire?
East Renfrewshire, sorry. And his church is Motherwell South, so it's, slap bang in the middle of the Lanarkshire conurbation. And my situation is a slightly detached bit of the same conurbation. We've got a gap between us and Lark Hall, so we don't, it doesn't join up, but it's 2 miles away. So our situation is slightly different, but yours is very different, in that you are genuinely rural. You're well out the road. How long does it take to drive from Glasgow to where you are?
Well, Glasgow would be 2.5 hours. Perth, where I came from, is 3.5 hours.
Yeah. So, but it's remote. There's a lot of tourism in the area, but not at the moment, I guess. But it's it's a pretty rural kind of situation that you find yourself in. So the villages that you serve are villages, aren't they? They're not, they're not towns.
Yeah, there's four primary schools in my parishes, and I don't think any one of them has pupil numbers in double figures. Really small hamlets, lots of farms. I look out the window and it's just sea and 4 different southern Hebridean islands.
It's the worst view ever. I can't.
It's terrible.
You can sit and look out your window. It's awful.
I mean, it's the crosses we have to bear, But you're right. So the Isle of Gigha, for example, is even more remote. See, I before I came here, I spoke to a colleague who had done something similar a number of years ago, and that was moved from Fife, where I had been a neighbouring colleague, and this other colleague went away to a part of Argyll, which is, again, I think he's got 4 churches, in fact, to minister to. And I had a conversation with him about that kind of transition of moving from one place to another like that. And he said, he came up with a phrase that said, it's rural, but it's not remote. It's rural, but it's not remote. And I thought that was really, really helpful, because where he is, he can go do shopping in the big bustling town of Fort William. Now, again, it's all relative, isn't it? But Fort William's a reasonably sized town with good amenities, whereas the villages he serves are not as nearly as big, of course. So I would say that Kintyre, the peninsula of Kintyre that's on the mainland, only just call it the mainland island, it's rural. But I wouldn't say Kintyre's remote. Gigha, however, on the other hand, as I say, it's connected by a ferry. And therefore, that makes it much more remote, because if the weather closes in on the mainland, generally speaking, you can still jump in the car and go to Glasgow if you want. Whereas if that ferry goes off, you're cut off. So that's been a very, very interesting thing to me, that the folk of Gigha, things have changed. Things are definitely different. But they're used to going to the shop and saying, oh, I hate to tell you, but we're out of bread, or the newspapers aren't in, or whatever it is. they're used to the roads being the road, the one
The
main.
ones in and out. Yeah.
They're used to it being empty. What they're not used to is this situation now where, and I was really looking forward to this, and this gets me down a bit. I was looking forward to coming out of the winter and then experiencing the big changes in this community when people travelled to fill the caravan sites, to come and stay in the hotels, to fill the roads with mobile homes, etc., etc. Because we've come through winter, the long, dark winter nights that, boy, oh boy, really are dark here. And that's okay. It's not a bad thing as such. It's just a very different thing. And coming out of those long, dark winters and the fact that people just, again, I can't really speak because I've not even been here for a year. And I don't know what I'm talking about, if you understand what I mean. How dare I speak on behalf of the local people? But my impression is, my sense is that in winter people retreat into their homes. They love to, as I have, put on the log fire, pick up their musical instrument, read, do internal things, and meet up with friends and have dinner parties and all that kind of thing. But in the spring and the summer, boom, it all changes. Suddenly people are running bed and breakfast. Suddenly people are running caravan sites. Suddenly people have got lots of grass to cut and lambing and dealing with cattle and it's servicing that tourist industry is for a lot of people, and that's gone.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's got the possibility of absolutely decimating this area.
Yeah.
And so that feeds into some of the stuff I've been doing actually, but I'll stop talking for a moment and let somebody else get a word in edgeways.
So you've described your context really, really well, and I think for lots of people listening, they will have a little experience of those kinds of places, apart from perhaps going on holiday. Few of us have lived in those kinds of areas, and the closest I got was we spent time in Blairmore, which is in the kind of Dunoon, sort of Holyloch kind of area. But it was 10-minute drive to Dunoon, which is a fairly decent sized kind of community. But still cut off, and very similar to Kintyre in that you can drive to Glasgow. It just takes an hour and a half, and you have to go around Loch Fyne, across the rest and be thankful and back down Loch Lomond. And it's a beautiful drive, but nobody wants to do it, especially in winter. So if the ferries go off, then much the same, you're stuck. And when I was growing up, I lived there when I was 15, 16, 17, 18. So if you wanted to go to a gig in Glasgow, then you could get over in the ferry, but you couldn't get the ferry home because the last ferry wasn't late enough. So you would drive, you'd get in at 2:00 in the morning because you had to drive round from Glasgow, kind of thing. So it is a different way of living, and your expectations of what you can get and when you can get it and how often that might happen. You're right. That kind of there might be no bread today or tomorrow or maybe the next day, but it'll come eventually because the ferry will go back on and it'll be okay. And you do get used to that kind of way of life, don't you?
Yeah. So there's a mindset here that's very different. I think the storm will pass. It's pretty wild at the moment. I don't mean right now, but that's the mindset that it might be blowing an absolute hoolie, the ferry's off, whatever changes there are happen. But listen, we've seen worse. We'll get through this. It'll be fine. Yeah. And so that mindset travels with people. Not only that mindset, whatever mindset we have, we carry with us into this new situation of coronavirus. And if you're already in a remote rural community, cut off, so to speak, where in the winter there's not any big, I don't know what people do in the winter, cinemas and I mean, there actually is a cinema. That's the irony. There is in Campbelltown. But what I mean is, you know what I mean? There's not all the big bustling activities of city. But if you're used to that, and in fact you've maybe chosen to live in a community like this, then hey, it's okay to have more time to do the garden, or more time to read, or more time to do the kind of things that you want to do. Although having said that, an awful lot of people here are incredibly busy right now. Things have not shut down at all for a lot of people, particularly farmers. You know, so but it's I think there's a lot to learn from people in our more rural areas about that kind of the lessons a lot of people are learning. You know, one of the reasons I moved here, there's myriad reasons I moved here, but one of the reasons is because I was burnt out and I needed a space and a place to re-find myself in many ways, or reassess my ministry and different things like that. And I wanted to find my way back to a more traditional ministry. And this is so ironic. It's so ironic because if people know anything about me from my past, you know, the thing in St Matthew's was we raised nearly £1 million to refurbish the church, and we've got the sound desk and the sound system was £40,000, right? So we installed an incredible array of IT, audio-visual equipment, Wi-Fi in every part of the building, an 800-seater building. But I got burnt out from trying to raise that money and trying to deal with all the politics, and both regionally, nationally, locally, etc., etc. And it just, I suppose, looking back on it, I had got to the point where I'd done my job. I didn't actually have any intention of moving on, and initially I thought, no way am I giving up this amazing building we've created for somebody like Stuart Cutler to come in and get all this IT kit, you know. But actually, it just came to a point of realization that no, it's time for me to move on and do something different. And I really wanted to do something different. I looked at other churches that were in other places on the mainland and different parts of the country, and I kind of thought that I've done that. I've never, like you're saying, Stuart, I've never lived. I love going to Collinsy, the Isle of Collinsy, so it's on the other side of Jura from where I am. I love going there once a year. I used to go there once a year for about 5 years for kind of a retreat, if you like. I love hiking, I love kayaking, I love being outdoors, so a lot of things here were just great for me. But I wanted to get away from technology and IT and restructuring churches and all of that stuff. And I was so enjoying getting the ferry over to Gigha and taking time with people, not rushing from here to there. So enjoying doing the same kind of thing here. And then this happens. And suddenly I'm launched into, like everyone else, or so many of us, launched into, right, okay, yes, I've got some experience of making videos and websites and stuff, but I've not done that for quite a while because I had people in my last congregation to do it for me or with me. Mm-hmm. And B, I came here to get away from all that stuff. So there's a real irony to that. But the irony continues, and that is my congregations, two of them, the most northerly congregation on the mainland has an average of 17 people. The Isle of Gigha in the summer, or towards the end of summer last year, we had about 35, but it averages out again about 17. And the church most local to me that I can see out the window here, it has about 35 or 40. So what's that, 40, 50, 60, 74 people, give or take.
Give or take, yeah.
Right? I do a pre-recorded service, mm-hmm. and it's averaging out at 650 people tuning in. Now, we don't know. We can look at the details of that. Some people tune in and go, "Oh, it's him." No, not interested. And you still get a hit. You still get a hit, yeah. And they've been on for 10 seconds, you know. But the feedback is I'm getting emails and phone calls and stuff saying, "This is brilliant. Really, thank you so much for doing it. So my congregation actually has really gone up. And what it means for the local folk too is that there's a lot of housebound people that weren't getting to church and weren't getting anything at all. And I wasn't thinking about them before COVID-19, nor were the rest of us. But suddenly we're all in the same position, so we're actually doing stuff that long-term housebound people are going to benefit from. So that is a big question for the future.
What did you, the kind of initial, we'll go all the way back then, so you had your sore throat and your cough, so you didn't go to work on Gigha that first week. And then in the middle of the week, there's an announcement to say everything's shut. What are you thinking at that point that you can say in polite company?
Well, I'm just like everyone else. I'm like a rabbit caught in the headlights going, what do we do? However, because I'm fortunate, and you are, and people that have experimented with stuff in the past, it is in some senses like riding a bike. You go, oh no, it's a bit wobbly, and oh gosh, I've forgotten how to do this. But once you get into the swing of it, you can do it. If you're a minister or an elder or a deacon or a member of the church who has a responsibility for doing things in church, and you don't have IT web-based kind of experience, the learning curve must be so steep. Yeah. But for me, I just honestly, I really didn't want to do it because, as Stewart might be able to tell you, this is my first Zoom call. I've put off having to use yet another app, because if it doesn't work, I really can't say the things.
Yes. Oh, I'm with you. Don't worry. Yeah. Absolutely.
So I didn't want to do it at all. I mean, and I think people that see what I do online will be surprised by that, because actually I enjoy it. If it works, I enjoy it. But my initial thought was, groan, here we go. And actually, I hope this person doesn't mind me saying this in the public domain, but one of my key elders came to see me and was not happy about the fact that I was putting a lot of emphasis and a lot of energy into an online thing. There's various layers to that, I think, but the desire was for our parish minister to phone people round and ask how people are. Forget all this online silliness. Get on the phone and be there for people. Now, I had to explain to that person that actually it wasn't either or. It was going to be both and.
Yeah.
But in these immediate days of closing churches and Sunday coming, I felt there was an urgency to get something done.
Yeah.
For public worship. And I'm sorry if they felt that I wasn't phoning enough people round, but that'll come. We're going to be in a long-term period here. And so I now describe myself as somebody who works in a call centre, because a lot of the time that's exactly what I do. I go through the church roll, I go through the phone book, and I phone up and say, hello, funeral director, listen, how are you doing? Hello, elder, hello, shopkeeper, hello, whoever you are. Just want you to know I'm thinking about you, how you getting on, and give people a sounding board. But yeah, it's both and. It's been both and, the online Sunday stuff, pre-recorded, and the phones.
So pre-recorded, partly because you can't rely on it not just working. So the broadband connection down your way is decent, slow.
Well, yeah, I mean, so I moved here in August. One of the things I spent my time doing during the winter months was learning to play the guitar better. I mean, I've played the guitar for years and years and years, i.e. whacking out chords. And that's fine, it carries a tune. But I wanted to start to learn to do some finger picking and new chord patterns and things like that. And there's a Facebook page that I kind of follow, Simple Guitar, whatever, I don't know what it's called. But it's people saying, oh, look, I'm trying to get this new chord pattern, what do you think? And you upload your video, maybe 3-minute video. It took me a while to do it, but I uploaded a wee video. So look, I'm kind of trying to do it. Do you know what happened was the video, the 3-minute video took about 45 minutes to upload. And when it eventually uploaded, halfway through the video, the screen froze for the rest of the video, and all you had was the audio. Okay, so that was a quality, or that was a kind of level of internet connection. Thank God, and I absolutely mean this with no blasphemy whatsoever, I got an email from our property convener sometime in January or February, I can't remember when, saying BT are about to upgrade to fibre. Do you want to go with that? And I was like, the download speeds for Netflix and stuff was actually okay. And I thought, I suppose so. It won't do any harm to get the fibre and get better quality. If we hadn't done that, there's nothing that I would be the phone line, and that would be it. I wouldn't have an online ministry at all.
Okay.
So that's but the other end of that is reception for other people that don't have fibre yet. And so it might actually be okay. Well, presumably it is. We're doing a Zoom call.
Yeah, it's great.
It's working fine. But there's people on an island across the water that certainly don't have fibre, and my responsibility is for them as much as anyone else. So it has to be pre-recorded so that people can download it as and when their internet allows. You know.
So you've gone for a pretty low-tech solution to enable people who don't have broadband or whose broadband isn't very good to still hear the service. So can you tell us a bit about that?
It doesn't feel low-tech to me. It feels really high-tech. What do you mean low-tech? I'm doing stuff on YouTube, don't you know?
Yeah, but you're enabling people. You were very quickly, you know, so people are scrambling. Last week I put my service on a telephone line thing.
Yes.
But you kind of did that differently.
Yes. So okay. I'll try something here with you guys. Basically, two things perhaps. One, yes, the internet connection is not brilliant for everyone.
Yeah.
And indeed, three things, in fact. Internet's not brilliant for everyone. Not everyone has internet.
Yeah.
And three, even those people who maybe have internet, there's some people in categories where they don't really know how to use it.
Yeah.
For example, I've got one of my elders who's just turned 80. Start at the beginning. I suggested to people, they take their phone and they hold them. If you can get the service on your phone on YouTube, you take your phone, you put the volume up, and you place the microphone section at the microphone section of this to the microphone section of the speaker section of this to the microphone section of the landline phone, and that way people who only have a telephone landline can actually listen to the service down the landline. That is really low tech. But amazingly, it really works. It really, really works. And so for me, I'm not going to change that because, again, I don't at all mean this in any patronising way whatsoever, but my mother's in a care home, right? My mum's 87 years old. If I was to explain to her, Mum, no, Mum, look, all you need to do is, I know you're not used to a mobile phone, but all you need to do, she would be lost. I know she would be lost. And even if I was to say to her, there's a telephone number you can phone that I think it still would, she would find that complicated. However, and here's another key point. If one of my elders of church members does what I'm suggesting, it creates a community dynamic where Jimmy phones Jesse and says, hello, Jesse, how are you doing? Have you got enough food? Are you coping okay? Are you feeling a wee bit lonely? And they have a wee conversation. Right, now we've had the conversation, would you like to listen into the service? And they do that thing, and then they can worship together. It doesn't need to be complicated, does it? And I actually, you see, this is something I think for my whole ministry I've watched and I've been engaged in. I think we're awfully good at complicating things, overcomplicating things in the church. You know, And that's what I wanted to do, was come here and get back to a contemplative ministry, a pastoral visiting ministry. I mean, that's really low tech. You know, I cycle to go and visit people on the Isle of Gigha. And it's beautiful, actually. It's wonderful. So it's not either or. It's both and. The church, and that will lead us on to the next part of the conversation in some senses. Where are we going? Because that's going to be an interesting conversation to have.
That pastoral sense, that one of the things that when we were talking to Stewart Love in the last episode, Stewart and I have both been in our posts around about the same time, so kind of 3.5 years. And I was saying to him that I was reflecting to my supervisor just before Christmas that she said, "Where are you in your ministry?" And I said, "I feel as though I'm at the end of the beginning." So kind of 3 years in, I felt as if I knew people. Yeah, because it takes, it just does. It takes a while to get to know people. You've been landed with this quite new into your ministry, so you're really just getting to know people, which is a very different kind of place to be, particularly when you want to focus on personal contact, pastoral encounter, looking after people, getting to know them really well. And you can do that because there's not 400 of them. And, you just can't get to know 400 people. It's just one of those things that you maybe remember half their names eventually. You can't really get to know them. Whereas you've got a group of people who you can actually get to know. It's that kind of size that you could get to know them all pretty well over a kind of period of time. But you haven't had that chance yet. So has this been good for that?
So what was the question?
Has this been good for that? Because it's given you the opportunity, as you said, just to pick up the phone and say, "Hiya."
No, it's not. It's not. Because you can have a conversation on the phone and you can get information. How can I put this? I don't want to give away any confidentialities, but I did 2 visits recently, in January or February, whenever. And the dynamic and interaction that happened, for one of them was in a person's place of work, and for another it was in their home. The emotions were physically demonstrated, and there was 2 beautifully very special connections that happened on those 2 visits particularly. And no, I would say absolutely no. I would say I am absolutely missing the facial expressions, the being able to take somebody's hand and say a prayer with them, or to put an arm around the shoulder, or to share a dram, or whatever it is. No, I'm really no. It's not at all. It's good. It's pragmatic. I can pick up the phone and say, "Hello, Jesse. How you doing?" 5 minutes later, I'm on to another phone call. But that's not a relationship. Sorry, Kenny.
No, I was going to say, do you find do you find it's almost becoming transactional? Like you said, you feel like you're in a call center right now. Is that just because it's call, right? I need to, does it feel like you've got a to-do list that's never ending with phone calls, and you're kind of just going through them, and is that kind of where you're struggling with it?
There's an aspect of that to it, yes, that you want to try and make sure people aren't getting left out. But I'm going to correct you, Stuart, actually, because you're saying it's a manageable number. Yes, the congregations are small, but I've always, for 20 years, found I am a minister of word and sacrament in the parishes of I'm a parish minister. So some of the phone calls I phoned somebody thinking it would be a 5-minute call, and wow, this was somebody that doesn't come to church, isn't part of the church, and has a business in the area that I just thought I would check in with. And they were on the phone for half an hour wanting to speak. And that was great. I was delighted to listen and be there for them. But and this also plays into what I feel my calling is. During the services we've had online, I've been very, very, very intentional about, one, providing worship, prayer, scripture, some kind of message, and some kind of praise. And also the offering, incidentally. I've now begun to put that in. But people may or may not be surprised that some of the contributions, I get people to send videos, little 2-minute, 3-minute things, and some of those contributions have been from local shopkeepers or local business owners or the ferrymen, for example, people who are not part of the church. But here's the thing. We can't see each other right now. We can't go to the church or go on the ferry or whatever it is, go to the shop easily and see each other. So I don't have a job just to provide prayers and Bible readings and do the churchy stuff. As a parish minister, I want to create an opportunity. Oh, there's Johnny, or there's Jackie, or why does everyone's name begin with a G? By the way, Jesse and Johnny and I don't know. But people are, it lifts the spirits to see people that you normally see, you can't now see, but you can see them online during these services. And the other thing, I don't think I'm doing nearly as good a job at this as I could or would like to. But I indicated this earlier on. Economically, I'm missing out on what normally happens here. The golfers, Kenny, who come to Macrahanish, the people who come to the hotels, the people who come to hike, do the Kintyre Way, or just to see the islands, or to come and fish, or whatever it might be, that's all gone at the moment. It doesn't bear thinking about for me what economically, what the situation people are in. So I make no mistake about it. Some of the emails that I've had are you getting paid by Visit Scotland? Are you getting, you're doing a lot of promotion of the area? Yes, I am, intentionally, because I want Kenny and I want Stewart and I want other people to come. But how are we going to be able to fly off to the Costa del Sol or wherever it might be? Probably not. So do you remember those holidays you had in Troon or over in Isla or wherever it was? The new normal might well be getting to know your own country again. And I would love people to come here because it's beautiful and because you'll have a great time, but also because the people, my flock, need that. And if I can do this tiny little thing to try and promote that, then I feel as if I'm fulfilling my calling as a minister, because I'm a minister to the people. So yeah, it's all in there. All that stuff is it goes around the head as you try and work it all out.
So what happens next? What do you think the future looks like? Because that's the huge question for all of us now, isn't it? We've all kind of rushed to content creation, and we're doing these videos and we're engaging with 600 people and that kind of, but we've no idea where most of them are.
Yep.
Some of them are people that as you said earlier on, people that would have come to church but can't because they can't get out of the house, or for whatever reason that might be. So do we pray for the day that the doors open and we rush back in and we leave all this behind again, and you can hang up your content creator hat and go back to being Scott in the church, or what do you think what does it look like?
Mm-hmm. I've ended up digging out a whole lot of books that I used to read that I've not read for ages. Brian McLaren's Everything Must Change. Well, guess what? Everything has changed.
Yeah.
And everything is going to have to change as well. Stories of emergence. Stories of the emerging church. How we were the church in my era. Funnily enough, Stuart Love, that's where I grew up. His Clincark Hill is an amalgamation of Mount Florida, where I grew up, and that's my home background. The church was incredibly strong then. You know, there was 80 boys on a Friday night in the company section of the Boys Brigade when I was there. God, the church is closed. We are emerging out of something into something new. So this isn't new. It's not new. We've always had to be. We should have been wrestling with how we become church in a changing culture. There you go. There's another book, Faith in a Changing Culture. I hope I get some kind of credits for the sales of these. You know,
I'll tweet John Dray later on and tell him.
Do that. But this one's the most interesting one in some senses. The Great Emergence by Phyllis Tickle. She talks about this is the back of the book now, okay? Every 500 years, the church cleans out its attic and has a huge rummage sale, and big things happen, like the Great Awakening, the Reformation. Ask Martin Luther or any number of the reformers what church looked like before the Reformation and what it looked during the period of Reformation, and you could say that we're still in that period. Okay, you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. But what it looked like after that big radical change, it seems to me that this has been coming for a long time for us. And now we have an opportunity in post-lockdown. Do we go back to the churches that I've explained that I'm part of, or the churches you're part of, and it's business as used to be normal? Or do we say there's something going on here? How can you possibly go from an attendance of 70 people listening to my sermon on a Sunday to an average of 650 and say that we just revert back to 75? Because I know for a fact some of the emails I'm getting are from people locally who I don't think would necessarily ever have considered going to church. And then other people are people that are not so local, but they're tuning in going, actually, I'm getting something out of this. And I put a wee challenge into my sermon on Sunday. What is your new normal going to look like as a consumer of Christianity, as a consumer of worship? What's your new normal going to be in regard to post-lockdown spirituality? But that question has to be asked of us as well. What's our new normal going to be? So yes, I'm already. I've got a meeting coming up with session clerks, my 3 session clerks. The first discussion point is what platform are we going to use to have a discussion on? Is it going to be Zoom or WhatsApp or Skype or FaceTime or whatever it is? But once we lock that down, or once we kind of bolt that down and decide what platform we're going to use, it's then a matter of questions of, we're not anywhere near going back, I don't think, right now. But we would be wise to be at least thinking about that. Now, here's an interesting thought. I think it's interesting because I'm saying it, okay? So it must be interesting.
Must be.
If
Absolutely.
cafes and restaurants are going to go back to some kind of normal before churches even begin to go back to normal, what has Cafe Church got to teach us then? Can we start some kind of service in the church hall which allows for fantastic distancing, where in my current thinking, and this is really just a kind of brain dump, okay, people could come in the one door and go out a different door. There could be a clean in between times, and then the second shift comes in. Might only be a maximum of 20 people you can have in the church hall at any one time, maybe even less actually. But they can have a cup of coffee, they can wave at each other to the other tables, they can have some kind of live worship, and then they can go on their way. We do a clean, the next shift comes in, and actually people have to book their table, like they book at a restaurant or a cafe. And it's a hybrid as well of what we've been doing online, because one thing I'm going to be very careful of is yes, people have already said to me, this needs to keep going once we get back to normal. And I've said, well, hold on a minute. The only reason I'm doing this is because we needed an alternative. What you're now asking me to do is an additional.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sorry, I've been burnt out before, and I'm not going to allow myself to be burnt out again, because the costs are too great for me personally. And broader, the ripple effects of that are, it's a cost for the church as well. So I think there needs to be a hybrid where we continue some kind of online church. But if I've already pre-recorded my sermon, can I not just show that in the church hall?
Yeah.
And then people, you understand what I'm saying? There's things we can, it doesn't need to be either or. And I really hope people don't just go back to what church was, because sometimes I say things that get myself into trouble, but it wasn't working.
Mm-hmm. I think we all know that.
Yeah.
Like many other things in society weren't working, and actually until somebody turns it off and turns it back on again, you don't realise.
Yes.
You know, because we never. One of the big problems, I suppose, is that, you know, so for me, the conversation before lockdown, you know, the kind of over the last 2 years has been, we need to do some other things. So we need to engage with some of these people that aren't coming to church. You know, the Church of Scotland had challenged everybody to set up a fresh expression by the end of this year. We've all done it. It took 10 minutes.
It took 10 minutes. It only took a global pandemic to get us to do it, but we've done it.
Yeah, but that's the problem, isn't it? It takes a global pandemic to give you the time and the space to do it, just as you're saying, Scott. You know, I'm only doing this because I'm not going on a Sunday morning to lead worship in the way that I normally had. And one of the questions that we had was, yes, we could set up a fresh expression, but who's going to do that? You know, is it going to be me? And if it's going to be me, then who's going to do the other things? Mm-hmm. And we were starting to address some of that. We had, you know, some local worship leaders and all that kind of stuff to free up a bit of space for everybody to think about it. But all of a sudden, somebody came along and went, off.
Hence the name of the podcast as well.
Yeah. Control-alt-delete. You know, it's the forced quit. You know, it's what happens when you just turn all of this off and turn it back on again. What becomes important. One of the things that you said early on, it's one of those great kind of churchy words, and my dogs are going to go mad now, was you used the word contemplative. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if this is an opportunity to reintroduce those kinds of practices to people. You know, the kind of idea that once we settle down a wee bit, and I think we're probably at a point now where people are kind of settling in a little bit to lockdown. I think there are still people who are incredibly busy, and there are people for whom this is becoming increasingly difficult for all kinds of reasons. But there are also a group of people who are kind of, okay, this is how it's going to be. It's going to be like this for a while for some folk. What can we do in that? It feels as though some of those, the kind of contemplative practices that the church, particularly the Reformed Protestant church, lost, are hanging around and you know, nudging their way back in again. One of my colleagues, Paul, the guy that used to be here, he's now across the valley at Law. He's having morning prayer in Compline every day. You know, the kind of idea of prayers in the morning and prayers before bed, 15 minutes. We YouTube, Facebook live video, and folk can join him or not, but it'll be there anyway. One of the guys I trained with, Nick, he's an Episcopal priest based just outside Edinburgh, and he would, you know, they say the office every day as a priest, and he would go across to the church from his wee rectory, and he would sit there on his own most days and say the office and then go back again. But people were welcome to join him. Now he's doing it on Zoom, and there's 20 people every day. You know, so it's not that those contemplative practices aren't interesting to people. It's just that sometimes we've either completely ignored them, or the way that we've offered them hasn't been particularly attractive to people. So do you think that, you know, I know that appeals to you. So, you know, is that something that you're, you know, it's kind of in the background thinking, you know, how do we gently reintroduce some of this stuff? Because it comes through in your videos, you know, the kind of, there's a lot of fresh air, there's a lot of nature, and you know, you talk often about, you know, God in the world and the seasons and the, you know, and the land. And the...
Yeah, didn't realise that was coming across, but yeah. So I felt quite selfish about my contemplation because of my personal circumstances and my personal requirements. And it kind of takes me all the way back to when I was a student. I used to really be frightened of hospital visiting. And I had a word, I intentionally asked to have a placement in a hospital because I was frightened of it. And I had talked it through with the hospital chaplain, and I read a book during the time as well to try and help me through. And my problem was that when I visited in a hospital, and my goodness, the NHS is a big talking point at the moment, but when a pastor or a minister goes into hospital, the doctor's there with his clipboard, and sometimes there's lots of students around the doctor as well, or the nurses are coming to check charts and press buttons, and the cleaners there brushing the floor and mopping, and the tea lady, oh, you want a cup of tea, minister? And people are always doing, and they've got a very obvious function. And I used to hate going into the hospital and feeling like a spare part and thinking, what am I meant to do here? Just stand here and hello. And you know, sometimes people can be in hospital and they can't communicate. So what's the point of visiting somebody that can't communicate? Well, the point is to be there with that person. And it was a eureka moment when I read in this book during my placement at the hospital, you know the phrase, don't just stand there, do something. Ministry can often be about turning that on its head. Don't just do something, stand there. The ministry of presence, the ministry of just being rather than doing, we talk about that in the church. We talk about it big time. And what happens is when you actually begin to practice contemplation and say, oh, I'm really sorry I can't go to that meeting, or I'm really sorry I can't be on that committee. Why can you not? Well, because I've got a much more contemplative ministry now where I want to read and I want to pray. Interesting. I might want to be a contemplative, but the church still, as an institution and as an organisation, I think still wants me to be fixing things and doing things. And I actually can see quite a lot of that amongst our colleagues where, oh right, we need to, you know, we're helping with food distribution, we need to be helping people with transport to the hospital, we need to... I've come to a point in my ministry where I realise, yes, these things need to be done, but they don't need to be all done by me. And I need to learn, and it's hard actually, I don't find it easy. I need to learn to take a step back. And the person that taught me this was Eugene Peterson. Eugene Peterson died last year, and he died when I happened to have the most beautiful, angelic, deeply spiritual Christian woman in my congregation in Perth who was in a hospice. And I happened to notice the Message Bible sitting on her bedside cabinet in the hospice. And I shared with her a little story about Eugene Peterson. He's got a book actually called The Contemplative Pastor. Mm-hmm. And he died last year, as I say. He used to go down to, he had a beautiful home with a lakeside setting. And he went down and he used to have a coffee and prayer and stuff by the lake. And he said he noticed a kingfisher one day. Oh, there's a kingfisher, that's beautiful, beautiful. And the next day he went down and there's a kingfisher again. And he went down another time and he noticed that he thought, I'm going to watch this kingfisher. And he watched the kingfisher and he counted the number of times the kingfisher dived into the water and came back out with no fish. And he makes the point, this is not just a fisher, this is the king of all fishers. This is the one that's going to catch the fish. 52 times, apparently, if I'm remembering my numbers and story right. It took him ages to catch a fish. For me, that's not the point of the story. For me, the point is, Eugene Peterson, how long does it take to count 52 dives of a kingfisher? That lazy old git was sitting, well, you see, that's the point, isn't it? Contemplation, noticing things, takes time. And I think a lot of people are realising that within lockdown, that they're noticing a lot of other things that they were too busy in the past to notice before. And so, just to finish this part of the kind of conversation off, a few weeks ago, I can't actually remember the text now. It was Jesus offering peace. Can you remember it? I can't remember. You watched it.
Yeah, it's part of the John.
It was John 10, wasn't it?
Yeah, John 10.
Yeah. And I had actually recorded, with this backdrop, the sermon. My sermon was all done and dusted about Jesus comes to offer peace, and this is what we learn from that Bible passage. And it was I'm sure it was a brilliant sermon. But I went to bed that night, and I woke up the next morning, and I slapped my head instantly and thought, you idiot. Right now, people are anxious and full of angst and worry and fear, and you've just given a sermon unpacking the finer, nuanced points about Jesus' teaching. And I happened to wake up at 6:30, and I grabbed my video equipment, and by 6:45, I mean, the beach is literally 45 seconds walk from my front door, okay? And as I said before, the Isle of Cara, the Isle of Gigha, the Isle of Islay, the Isle of Jura, it's all right there. And I went down and I recorded an 18-minute, it turned out to be 18 minutes, of Lectio Divina, where I took my time to slowly, gently invite people to consider, as they listen to the lapping of the waves, Jesus' words, peace I leave with you, or whatever the words were, I can't remember. So yes, I think we need to develop new practices and encourage people into that space that we've been forced into right now that's really quite scary. But now that we're here, actually, golly, it's quite nice to be sitting in the back garden with a coffee and listening to the birds singing. Or, gosh, I hadn't noticed that about my children before because I was too busy earning a living, bringing in money to provide for the children that I wasn't taking time with, or whatever your scenario might be. So yeah, I think there's a lot to learn, but that's not going to be easy either, because that's going to change the way church services maybe feel and look. So there you go. I'm quite good at talking, just going on.
Yeah.
No, I was going to say that it kind of reminds me of advice I was given way back when I was a graduate. So you're talking 10, 15 years ago now. Mm-hmm. And it was my mentor / manager at the time kind of told me the story about not being afraid to not do anything and think about stuff. Mm-hmm. Like, don't get caught in the, like you said, don't get caught in the hustle and bustle of a daily grind of doing stuff just because that's what you've always been told you have to do. And just because that's what everybody else does, and it's societal, it's institutional, it all goes back to that. And being criticised for thinking about something is commonplace because people don't want to, they're scared of it. They're scared of taking that time and slowing down. And like you said, being forced to do it and being forced to have that and be able to do that, I think is helping people realise that they don't necessarily need an awful lot of the things that they thought they did. Mm-hmm. It's quite interesting from that perspective. Like my part of my story is I was furloughed on the 1st of April. So I've not been working since then, and basically spent the time not really doing an awful lot other than walking the dog and looking after my wife and stuff. And that's allowed me the chance to sit back or walk or put a podcast in when I'm out with the dog more than I normally would. But it's varied things and allowed me to be able to spend some time contemplating about the world, contemplating about where I live, about everything. And it's totally changed my attitude towards spirituality as well, because I was struggling before all this happened. Like, I had a bit of a breakdown last year, just relating to a number of things, and it kind of pushed me away because I thought, right, why is this happening? But the last 2 or 3 weeks in particular, because of everything that's been going on, has made me realise that actually a lot of the stuff that made me have the breakdown I had, I didn't need. And it's been quite refreshing in a way to be able to just break that and say, no, there are only certain things in my life that I need to worry about, and certain things that I need to contemplate and think about. And I absolutely agree with you. It's going to be very interesting to see how the church takes this forward. And it's a similar point to the one we had with Stewart at the end of the last podcast. Stewart, about there's got to be a change, and it's got to be something that works, and it's got to be something that is contemplative and spirit-led. And that's the important part of it, definitely.
And yet, I'm hearing lots of voices saying, can't wait to get back to normal.
Yes, absolutely.
So we might be experiencing this new blessing of less busyness, but are we actually just going to fall into the same traps all over again?
Yeah, and that's why it's important that we're doing what we're doing. You're having a meeting with your 3-session clerks to say, right, what does this actually mean for us, and how is this going to change things? Because ultimately that's what we've got to do. And that's kind of like the important next step that we need to think about now. And it's one of those things that we need to make sure or help people understand it needs to happen. Because like you said, a lot of people just say, oh, it's great, we can go back to our Tuesday morning coffee morning now because we can all see one another again and give one another a hug. Like, yes, that's great, but what about everything else that we've been doing that's done an awful lot of good in the society that we're living in? How do we get access to those people again and help those people? Like we're using there's folk in our congregation, our worship convener and our husband and another couple are taking it week about to do some work in the church garden. And through that, they're doing that, they're erecting like a prayer cross for people who are walking past to be able to see that prayers that the congregation are saying for the community, and we're getting all sorts of amazing feedback and letters and notes and, saying thanks for that. I'm not saying we wouldn't have done that had lockdown not happened, but people appreciate it an awful lot more right now than they ever would. Yeah. And I think it's quite a comforting thing.
Yeah.
Glad Angus agrees.
That'd be Magnus.
Magnus, sorry.
Magnus never bucks. It's just Magnus. So one last question then, because we've been on for ages.
I have gone on for ages.
No, we have
collectively have, don't worry.
I'm really interested in that part of that conversation about having more time, and for some of us, I've been really guilty of doing all of the things that you listed on I've noticed some of our colleagues, but that you kind of said, right, so one of the first things we did was set up a community hub thing. Now, I'm quite good at saying, yes, that's a great idea, you should do that. But, obviously some of that involves me. I need to give some time to that, and I need to, give a bit of headspace to it and a bit of energy to it. And before we spoke today, I was showing Scott that at the moment I'm setting up a shop on the website so that we can sell masks for church funds. So, and that's partly because I know how to do that, but I'm sure there are other people in the congregation that have those skills. So I've been filling myself with busyness. And last week, I think it was, I can't even remember, last Thursday or Friday, I woke up with a bursting sore head. Friday it was, feeling sick, kind of sore, and some of it was just absolutely shattered. I was just really tired. I'm sure some of it was a bit of anxiety, and some of it was I've not had a day off for 6 weeks. And you're kind of sitting there thinking, what are you doing? And I know all of that. That's not a, it's not a new occurrence in my head that, you really need time off and you have to do all of that, and, you need to look after yourself. It's a crisis, so you can justify not doing any of those things because it's a crisis. And, you know, my wife works in the hospital, so, you know, I can't like slack off because, you know, she's got to go and be a hospital chaplain, so she's got to go and sit with people who are dying, and, you know, like, you know, what am I doing? I'm just sitting in my house playing my laptop. You know, so there's some of this justifying your existence thing that I think we've all been sucked into at some point. You know, if you're not busy, you're not justifying your existence, and therefore, you know, what's the point of you? But the other side to that is when you stop all of that, you've suddenly got all this time to think about those things. And that can be terrifying for folk. You know, that kind of, you know, suddenly I've got a moment to just sit back and think, well, what does any of this matter? Or what does matter? And what doesn't matter? And, you know, I'm doing this job. Do I like it? You know, I don't have to go anymore. And suddenly I feel much better. You know, there's a lot of that going around that, you know, I don't have to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning to go and get a train at 7 o'clock in the morning to, you know, to fly to London, or to, you know, all the things I used to do in my previous job. You know, folk are saying, well, I don't have to do that anymore. This is great just to have this bit of, but at some point they'll have to go back to work. And one of the things that, so then I suppose I've become aware of, and again, something we said just before we started to record, you were talking about, I'd say, how are you? And you say, I'm all right today. And I've become much more aware of that. I think I'm okay today as well. But on Friday I was rubbish.
I feel like I have had a head start to a lot of this stuff. Partly because I mentioned earlier on that I had a burnout. You know, we did this big massive refurbishment, and I really was. I was just plain exhausted. Not. Again, the lady that was in the hospice, she was just an adorable person. And you know, I don't know, 5 years ago or so, she asked, "How are you doing, Scott?" And I said, "Oh, I'm tired. In fact, I can say to you, I'm sick and tired. Sick and tired of it. It's never enough. You know, I do visits, they're never enough. I make phone calls, it's never enough. I preach a sermon, it's never enough. We fix something in the church, but it's never enough. We get some children to the Sunday school or whatever, it's never enough." And I probably put the pressure on myself more than anyone else. But yeah, I burnt out. I absolutely burnt out. And I remember going to the doctor and saying, "I'm angry, I'm bitter, I'm becoming exhausted, I've got anxiety, I'm frightened, I've not got any energy." And she said, "Yeah, absolutely." This is my GP. She said, "Yeah, it's all of that. It's all of that. It's like a big ball of wool that's all got tangled up and knotted, and you just have to slowly but surely take some time to unravel that to make sense of it all." So I've had a head start because I've been dealing with that consciously for maybe the last 3 or 4 years. And then when I moved here, you move from the city with the pubs and the restaurants and the variety of options, your friends and your family, the city lights, and that's no insignificant thing to say, the city lights. You come here and in winter it is pitch black. I mean, the stars are amazing in the winter, but it's dark. And I now live alone as well. That's been a big adjustment to make. And so you were all talking about this new normal. When I moved here, that there was a new normal. And yeah, I am being quite open about my mental health struggles these days. I'm being open about it. Maybe I'm going to the other extreme, and maybe that's not the right thing to do. Who knows? Who does know? I really don't know. But I have presented a persona for the last 20 odd years I've been a minister of. I've got it together. I preach my sermon, and of course this is what Jesus meant, and that's what it's about, and we'll be fine. And I'm even making I'm making the facial expressions of, oh yes, and then you come away from the church into the manse, and you've got to deal with barking dogs, or kids being late home from school, or the kind of the toilets leaking or whatever it is, and you're not the same person you are publicly, obviously, with all these things. So what's that about? What is that about? Jesus says, I've come that you might have life in all fullness. Jesus says, I've come that you might have peace within yourself, etc., etc. We know all this stuff. Come unto me, you those who are heavy laden, etc., etc. And yet we're not finding that. Or, no, I can only speak for myself. I was not finding that. And I would say that part of the reason for that was because the institution demanded so much of me. Yeah, and that has been my new normal for the last 9 months, trying to work out what it means to be a minister in a much more balanced kind of way. And that's not going to stop. And it will include, unfortunately for some people, it will include me saying, I'm really sorry, but that's A, not my forte, and B, I don't actually think it's my remit. Mm-hmm. The church as a whole has a broad remit of social concern, of buildings maintenance, of prayer, of preaching and mission and evangelism and Christian education from cradle to grave. The church as a whole has a responsibility for all that. But I'm 20 years in, and I've come to realise that actually, and this sounds so ridiculous, because the flip side of it is, did I think I was Superman or something before? But I've come to learn I'm only human. And I really am only human. And I think churches look for super pastor. And I've tried to measure up to that for my own expectations. I've tried to measure up to that for each congregation I've served and been proud and honoured to serve. I've tried to measure up to that for the presbytery, and I've tried to measure up to that for the national church, and of course for God's self. But yeah, I'm learning. I think it's all just about getting old and just having some kind of crisis of I can't do all the stuff I used to be able to do. But I think we need to be more honest. We really need to learn to be more honest and take some step back. So I hope a lot of people are learning a lot of lessons through this, and I hope the lessons we learn we carry with us into the new normal, whatever that's going to be.
Yeah, there's a whole lot I can say about that. I think you're right. There's a lot about this role that allows you, should you wish, to put on your cape and your underpants outside your trousers and go and try and save lots of folk, or to be all things to all people, or it's just one of those kinds of jobs. I think it presents multiple opportunities to be pretty much anything you want to be, and knowing when to say no is probably the greatest gift and skill, I think, and the whole stramash of talents and skills that you might need to do this kind of job, because it's really, really easy just to get sucked into doing absolutely everything. Yeah. But also, I mean, I've heard you say before that, for example, having 2 days off is the best decision you ever made, because it allows you to be fresh and focused and actually to get more work done, which is, sounds completely counterintuitive. It's a conversation that's been happening in society. The kind of 4-day working week that New Zealand introduced and turned out, it's more productive. We've asked everybody, so we're going to ask you the same question. What are you using to make your things? So I noticed that you bought yourself something fancy. I noticed you posted on Facebook that you bought yourself a selfie light.
Oh wow!
My halo has slipped.
And a fancy road, Mike.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I was quite well. So I had two amazing things happened, and I mean amazing things happened. Very humbling indeed. Week one, I cobbled together a wee half-hour thing. The ratios I got all totally wrong on the week one. They didn't even fill the screen. I literally had my mobile phone that I'm using right now sitting on a music stand, and that was it. That literally was it. That was all I had, and that was all I was going. That's the way it's going to be. That's fine. That's, again, I'm not going to get all wound up and over stressed about, oh, it needs to be this, it needs to be that. I'm very, very, very blessed because I put that service up online, and I happen to be friends. I've never met this guy, but I happen to be friends with Tom Ury. Tom Ury is an incredibly talented guy who has been in Trainspotting 2 and River City and Still Game and all these things. It's because of something I did in the past, and we ended up becoming friends on Facebook. Anyway, Tom obviously saw my service online, and the content, he thought, well, his feedback, I'm only saying what his feedback was. His feedback was, he said he found it really helpful. I happen to have a video editing suite in my flat. Would you like me to do your editing for you? And I was like, yeah, okay then, why not? Of course I want you to do my editing, man. So Tom does all the editing week after week, which is fantastic. I mean, as the weeks have gone on, actually I've got a wee bit better at it myself, but it's great to have Tom on board, fantastic to have Tom on board. And that's a wonderful partnership. But the second thing that happened was there were, I need to be careful what I say here, there was an anonymous gift made from people within one of the congregations that I serve. They contacted me to say, right, you're going to have to do this online stuff. Can't thank you enough for the week one. What do you need to make it better? And I was like, oh golly, I don't really know. So I then contacted somebody in my old congregation who's right into these kind of things, made a fantastic, absolutely brilliant, give a wee shout out to Gordon Lackey. Gordon Lackey made an absolute superb video for the reopening of the refurbished St Matthew's in Perth.
Yeah.
And I said, Gordon, I've been launched into this situation, what do I need? He pulled it all together on Amazon, and we just sorted it out that way. So I've got a selfie lamp, I've got a microphone, most importantly, I have a long lead. It's actually tangled under the tripod now, but we've got a wee tripod, but this is really essential, Kit, a long lead that can allow you to step back. I happen to have a bird watching telescope and tripod as well, so in fact the clip that's holding my phone is sitting on my bird watching tripod. And I think that's about it. Actually, it's not overly complicated, but it makes a big difference having things that you're not trying to balance things and using old stock lamps and trying to get the angle right and things. So yeah, there you go. But it's not overly complicated. I do have a BBC editing suite in my
your extended parish.
In my studio in Glasgow, you know, and of course the other thing is I have the YouTube channel, and grown. It's so embarrassing. I find it embarrassing, you know. It was the last thing. I mean, don't get me wrong. My ego has been a big ego in the past, and maybe it's still big in the present. I don't know, but yes, once upon a time, I would have had all sorts of. I know you had a wee dig at Stewart. Not a dig, but you were having a wee laugh about, being a content creator or whatever. But YouTube channel's not. It's really not what I would want to do. However, I think it's now going to evolve because we're going to have. I think I'm learning that it's a really positive thing to have. So there you go. With that, I'll stop. What's your most exciting piece of kit?
Oh, mine?
Aye.
I've I've done like what you've done. I've cobbled together things. I went and stole. I've got this, which is basically the church. We had a couple of radio mics in the church, and I bought a £20 mic that came with an arm thing, and threw the microphone away because it's rubbish. But now I've got a thing that'll hold it. And I took Stuart's advice last week, and I bought an LED desk lamp because I suffer from backlight. So like your selfie lamp, I've got an LED backlight. And I'm using my mobile phone, and I bought a little Rode mic to clip into it. Hence why all my videos are from 2 feet away at the moment, because I didn't do what you did and buy a long lead. So I need to go and buy a long lead. That's my thing for this week that I've learned. Yeah. And that, I think I made the joke on Facebook the first week. I'm really glad that I've kept every thing that I've ever bought and every cable that I've ever had, because I've used some of them. But actually what I've done is gone back to a tripod, my phone, a microphone, and just using my laptop to edit it. And that, actually the kind of simplicity of that is fine, and it works. Yeah.
Cool. Oh, the one thing I didn't show you that I have got is a gimbal.
Oh, see,
I've got a gimbal.
That's on my list of,
I'm not sure I'm using it correctly yet, but
but you've got one.
Yeah, I've got one, and I have used it. It's quite cool, but it's sometimes not as balanced as it should be. But there you go. Yeah.
But good if you've I noticed in some of your videos you've been out walking about and stuff like that. It makes a huge difference for things like that.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, no motion sickness when you're
precisely
walking up the road. Brilliant, Scott. It's been great to catch up with you. Thanks for sharing your insights. It's been fabulous.
Thank
you very much, sir. Much appreciated.
And when this is over, we'll take you up on that offer and we'll come and see you.
Come and stay and play.
Welcome. Yeah, bring your clubs. Yeah.
We'll bring our clubs, you can bring your whiskey.
Excellent. No, you bring your whiskey too. You don't drink that mine.